creatures that science cannot explain, and encounters that left witnesses completely changed. These videos feel like proof that whatever is out there isn't limited to one place. So let's watch the most terrifying creatures ever caught on camera. A man sitting inside his car recorded two large creatures standing upright on his house porch in the middle of the night, one pressed against the front door, and the other peering through the window with its hands raised against the glass. They were broad, dark, and standing on two legs with complete ease.
Se está yendo.
Within seconds, the one at the window broke away and sprinted into the woods at a speed that left the man sitting frozen in his car without a single explanation for what he had just witnessed. Horned beast. This tourist was just wandering through the woods in Canada, enjoying the winter scenery, when he noticed something dark and tall moving through the trees ahead. It walked upright, had long curved horns rising from its head, and was dragging or probing the snow with a stick like it was searching for something buried underneath. The whole scene made every instinct scream to leave immediately. He managed to slip away without catching its attention, which felt like the luckiest moment of his entire trip. Nobody could quite explain what it was, but it looked ancient and deeply unsettling. Strange creature. A farmer stepped out to check on his fields after hearing some unusual sounds coming from outside, and what he came across was something that made absolutely no sense. Wedged into the branches of a tree was this bizarre creature perched up in a tree, clinging to the branches with long, dark, feathered limbs and a face that looked disturbingly human.
Oh, está ahí arriba.
His dogs had creatures cornered and weren't letting up, barking and howling at it from below while it screeched back from above. Eventually it launched itself out of the tree and took off at a speed that made it impossible to follow, leaving the farmer with no answers. Yard mystery. This man was just doing regular yard work, nothing unusual about the afternoon, when a dark creature suddenly shot across the grass and vanished into the gap between two trees. He got close enough to see it properly, and what looked back at him from inside the hollow was deeply unsettling. A wrinkled, almost human face, framed by thick dark fur, completely silent, just watching him. That yard belonged to something else entirely.
Oh my God, Jesus.
Cave vampire. Inside a dark, rocky cave, a pale humanoid creature was caught hanging upside down from the ceiling before suddenly spreading its wide membranous wings and flying deeper into the darkness. In European and Latin American folklore, the strigoi is described as a winged humanoid that roosts in caves and hunts in darkness, and this footage matches that description almost perfectly. Blizzard angel. Somewhere in a raging snowstorm, a tall, white-robed figure was filmed, standing completely motionless on a rocky outcrop, entirely unbothered by the conditions surrounding it. Within seconds of being recorded, it spread two enormous wings from beneath its robes and lifted straight off the rock into the whiteout sky, disappearing into the storm without a trace. No known animal on Earth carries that body shape, those proportions, and the ability to stand still in a blizzard before taking flight. Bumper scream. A driver's camera captured something that had perched itself directly on the front bumper of their car in the middle of a dark, empty road, and whatever it was staring straight through the windshield with eyes that carried far too much awareness for anything with feathers.
¿Por qué no lo es? No parece un ave. Mírele la cara. Claro, tiene ojos humanos, nos está mirando fijo.
The body was bird-like, but the face belonged to something else entirely. Wide, pale eyes, an open beak lined with what looked disturbingly like lips, and a gaze that felt uncomfortably intentional. Several seconds into the footage, it opened that beak and released a scream that the people inside the car reportedly said they could feel in their chest, before they managed to pull away from that road and never looked back.
Esperamos. Dios mío, escucho eso. Arranque, vámonos ya.
Landed light. A group of friends in Mexico had been watching strange lights moving across the sky when those lights suddenly dropped out of the air and landed somewhere in a remote forest nearby. Curious enough to investigate but not nearly prepared for what they found, they moved toward the tree line and picked up something in the darkness, a faintly glowing blue face, hovering low to the ground, entirely still and staring outward.
Hay que agarrarlo, güey. Es uno chiquito, güey. Es uno chiquito.
Then a second figure slowly rose up from behind it, revealing its full height in the darkness, before turning and walking away into the trees. The friends did not follow. They turned and ran without a single word between them.
No mames, vete a la verga.
Pale swimmer. A camera captured something rising from the water in a narrow canal, and the figure it revealed was deeply unsettling in its almost human appearance. It was pale, white, bald, broad-shouldered, and carried the facial features of something that had been designed to resemble a person without quite getting it right. As it flipped beneath the surface, and for just a second, a tail became clearly visible where legs should have been. Whatever this thing was, it had been moving through that waterway long before anyone thought to check the camera footage. Mud bath. At the edge of a murky wetland, a gray, hairless, humanoid creature was filmed, crouched in the mud, methodically coating its own body in thick, dark sludge, as though the process was completely routine. Its proportions were wrong for any known animal, rounded, hairless, and unnervingly close to humans in its posture, and the deliberate way its limbs moved. Nobody approached it, because whatever this thing was doing in that swamp, it carried the quiet certainty of something that had been there long before anyone arrived to watch. Winged creature. So this video came out of India, and honestly, when I first saw it, I had to watch it twice. There's this creature in the middle of a dusty street. It's covered in feathers and fur, with these big dark wings. A bunch of guys had it tied up with ropes, and were dragging it through the street. People were gathered around, everyone looked confused and scared. Then, somehow, it broke free, and just disappeared into the dust. Nobody knows what it was, or where it went. Human face horse. Deep inside a rainforest, an explorer came across something that made no sense at all. 3 horse-like creatures were moving together between the trees. 2 of them had heads that looked almost human, with faces you could actually recognize as humanoid. The third one appeared to be a normal horse. All 3 were calm, not running, just slowly moving through the forest together. The explorer filmed them from a distance as they quietly disappeared into the trees. Maybe a secret tribe was living in that rainforest. Creepy deer. A guy was exploring the woods one day and went way further than he should have. Deep in the trees, he spotted a creature standing upright on 2 legs. It had a massive dark body, broad shoulders, and a head with large antler-like horns sitting on top like a deer.
Those antlers that walk. Oh man, it's going deeper.
A guy alone in those woods with something like that nearby had one option, and he took it. He backed away slowly, stayed completely silent, and made it out without the creature ever turning around. Nobody has identified what that was. Scary encounter. A woman in Peru heard strange noises late at night and got shocked by what she saw outside. A giant dark creature that had the face and body of a wolfman. The creature was trying to get through a gate into a house when it spotted her watching from across the street. It turned, looked directly at her, and started moving toward the fence aggressively. It tried to get over but could not make it. Then it just turned around and walked off down the road and was never seen again. Creature chaos. In Colombia, a creature was caught after causing chaos among locals in an open area. When authorities arrived, they found something that took multiple officers to restrain. The creature had a human-like build, but with dark leathery wings, and a face unlike anything in any known animal record. Police managed to take control of it with the help of the crowd standing around. After that, the story went completely silent. No official report of what happened next. A creature was caught in broad daylight in Colombia, and then simply disappeared from every record that followed. Uninvited guest. A dark, heavily built creature was caught outside a house, pressing itself against the window and peering inside with deliberate curiosity rather than random animal behavior. After several seconds, without any obvious trigger, it dropped from the window and bolted down the street on all fours at a speed that no human could replicate, vanishing into the darkness before anyone could get a better look. Creepy birds. A man in Brazil was making his way toward the woods when he came across 3 of the strangest creatures he'd ever seen. They had gaunt human faces, dark feathered wings. There was something deeply unsettling about the way they approached. Not aggressive, but deliberate, like they were delivering a message without saying a word.
Vámonos.
He turned back, and honestly, that was probably the smartest decision. Whether they were some kind of guardian, an omen, or something the woods sent out to turn people away, that road clearly had a gatekeeper. Angry beast. A man riding a chairlift in Russia when a massive dark figure emerged through the storm below him. It was walking upright, broad-shouldered, and moved with a kind of aggressive purpose that made it clear this wasn't a lost hiker. Some people thought it was a dogman, others leaned toward a werewolf-type creature. Either way, it looked furious about something. The man was lucky to be suspended above it because that thing headed straight through the ski area without any fear. Whatever it was, it owned those mountains that day. Captured beast. Police in India were filmed escorting a chained creature through a crowded street that stopped everyone cold. It was upright, heavily built, covered in thick brown fur with a metal muzzle over its face. Officers struggled to control it while locals recorded on their phones. It was loaded into a police vehicle and driven away. No statement and follow-up were provided. In Indian folklore, the Rakshasa is described as a massive, fur-covered humanoid of terrifying strength. That description fits what people saw almost perfectly. What do you think they actually captured? Forest Council. Someone moving through a dense forest stumbled across a gathering of small humanoid creatures standing together between the trees, apparently mid-conversation with each other. They had pointed ears, large heads, lean gray bodies, and were adorned with what appeared to be handmade ornaments hanging from the branches surrounding them.
Están colgando cosas. Fíjate.
What made this footage particularly unsettling was not the creatures themselves, but the fact that they were organized, communicating, and completely unbothered, suggesting something that had been living there, hidden and functioning, long before that camera ever found them. Unexpected catch. A man was out taking pictures of a peaceful woodland area when he captured something he almost certainly wasn't expecting. Standing at the tree line, partially hidden by the tall pines, was a massive dark figure that stood far too tall to be any ordinary animal. When the image was zoomed in, it revealed what looked unmistakably like a Sasquatch, broad, dark, and completely upright, with a build that dwarfed everything around it. The most unsettling part was how still it stood, like it had been watching long before the camera ever pointed its way. He came for nature shots and got so much more. Dark giant. This woman was visiting China during the holidays and decided to head into the woods for a bit of exploring, which seemed harmless enough at the time. Before she crossed into the tree line, her eyes caught a glimpse of something enormous, standing motionless between the trunks ahead of her. It was upright, covered in dark fur, and built so heavily that it stood out completely against the bare, snowy trees surrounding it.
Wait for it. Why does it look like a goddamn Yeti?
The lady had no idea how long it had been standing there. The fact that it never moved during the entire encounter was unsettling enough to make the decision for her. She backed away and left the woods to whoever that belonged to.
Alright. I think it's time to go back inside now.
Snow Bigfoot. A skier was recording his descent along a snow-covered mountain ridge when his camera picked up something massive walking towards him. It was a broad, dark, heavily built figure, moving along the ridge on 2 legs. The skier got within a frighteningly close distance before apparently realizing what was in front of him. Witnesses online pointed out that the sheer width of its shoulders, compared to the surrounding snow, makes a human in dark clothing very hard to argue. What do you think was walking on that ridge? Between trees. Someone hiking through a dense forest in North America caught this on camera, and what immediately separated it from every other forest sighting is the way this thing moved, not frantically, not cautiously, but with the kind of unhurried confidence that belongs to something that has never once felt like prey in these woods. The figure was massive, dark, and carried a gait that sat somewhere between animal and human in a way that neither explanation fully covers, pushing deeper into the tree line until the forest closed behind it entirely. Midnight visitor. A man looked out of his house window late at night and found a deer-like creature standing completely still at the edge of his property, staring directly back at him from the darkness. It had antlers, unnaturally long legs, and a rigid upright posture that no deer ever held for that long. The man stood there for a moment, then closed the curtains and stepped away from the window, because whatever that thing was outside, it had clearly been standing there long before he ever looked out. Dark pursuit. A police officer's body cam footage captured something that no official report could have prepared anyone for. The officer had reportedly been searching the area for an unspecified reason, moving through thick brush in complete darkness, with only the body cam light cutting through the night. Then the beam landed on something crouched low in the undergrowth, a large dark mass with limbs that were proportioned wrong, hunched between the bushes in a way that suggested it had been watching the officer long before the officer found it. The footage circulated online without any accompanying police statement, and the department never confirmed what their officer encountered that night. Mountainous aberration. A hiker in a mountainous forest zoomed in on what initially appeared to be a large goat standing on a rocky hillside, but the moment the camera sharpened its focus, something about that face stopped everything cold. The features were wrong in a way that was deeply unsettling. The eyes sat too deliberately. The jaw carried an expression no goat's face was ever built to hold.
Este bosque. Mucha gente dice haberlo visto. No me acerco más. Dicen que ha atacado personas.
And the curved horns framed a head that looked far closer to something human than anything that belonged on four legs. It turned its head slowly, then walked calmly into the tree line and disappeared. Swamp stare. Deep in a Louisiana swampland, something was crouched at the water's edge in the middle of the night, studying the surface of the water with a focused stillness that felt nothing like animal instinct. It had a canine head, a hunched muscular body, and moved between positions on two legs with a fluid ease that no known swamp animal was built for.
It's looking right at me. Holy.
The moment it sensed the person watching, it straightened up, turned its head, and held that stare for just long enough to make absolutely clear that it knew it was being watched before disappearing into the darkness. Wrong hands. Fishermen pulling in their nets off the coast made a discovery that none of them had any framework for tangled inside was what appeared to be a shark. But the moment it started struggling to free itself, the situation became something else entirely. Instead of fins, this creature was using what were unmistakably hand-like limbs to grip the netting and push against it, with fingers wrapped around the mesh with a dexterity that no marine animal in any known catalog has ever been documented to possess. Horn being. A group of tourists exploring the woods in Mexico came across something that none of them could identify. It was a strange creature, covered in thick, dark gray fur, and standing upright on two legs with massive curved horns sitting on top of its head. It just stood there on that path, staring directly at them. Then it lowered its head and started moving, totally unbothered by their presence. Some of them believed they had encountered a creature that has never been documented before. Others walked away convinced that what they saw was the result of some kind of scientific experiment gone wrong. Sasquatch body. A tourist was hiking through the woods in Ohio, just a normal day out, when he stumbled across something laying in the bushes. He got closer, and it was this huge furry creature, just lying there on the ground. The body was massive, covered in thick brown fur, with these big clawed hands you could see clearly. The guy crouched down next to it, and you could tell by his face he had no idea what he was looking at. People are saying this could be Sasquatch. Goblin encounter. A man in Peru was walking to his car late at night when he spotted something strange moving through the parking lot. He grabbed his phone and started recording immediately. The creature was tiny, pale, and walking upright on two legs and a very thin body, kind of like what people describe as a goblin. It moved quickly between the parked cars, almost like it knew someone was watching. Then it disappeared completely. The man had no explanation for what he saw that night in that parking lot. Mysterious birds. This video has been shared online from an unknown source and puzzled every viewer. You can see two giant birds sitting on a branch in a forest, but their faces look nothing like any known bird. The skin around their faces looks almost human, and the way they sit and stare is deeply unsettling. People who watched this footage had very different explanations. Some said these were shapeshifters or witches in animal form. Others believed they were an undiscovered species entirely. Reptilian creature. A tourist was walking through a national park in California when he spotted something crawling across the sandy ground ahead of him. It had a human upper body, pale skin, and then from the waist down it had this long, scaly reptilian tail dragging behind it. The tourist kept filming and slowly got closer. The moment he did, the creature seemed to realize someone was watching. It turned and started moving fast toward the tree line and disappeared into the woods. Something was living in those woods that day that does not belong in any biology textbook. Tiny winged creature. A group of friends broke down on a highway in Nevada, and while they were waiting for help, one of them noticed something pressed against the barrier on the side of the road. It was this tiny winged creature, dark-skinned, clinging to the wall like it was hiding. It had little arms, bat-like wings. Nevada already has one of the biggest alien and creature reputations in the entire country. The fact that this was found on a highway in that same state has left a lot of people with questions that have no answers yet. Camper encounter. A camper in Indonesia was out at night when he noticed something sitting up in the trees that did not belong there. He pointed his camera at it, and you can see this dark creature just perched on a branch, completely still, staring down. It is covered in what looks like dark fur or skin, and the face has this deep red coloring with glowing eyes that makes it even harder to look at.
Woi, lagi santai kawan. Pakai.
Indonesia has a long history of reported creatures in the forests, and this footage added one more to that list. Crawling creature. Security cameras in China picked this, right in the middle of the night when the streets were empty. The footage shows this creature low to the ground, moving in a really strange way, almost crawling, but not quite. It was scratching at the wall and wandering around like it had no idea where it was going. The way it moved, it looked like a hybrid of a human or any other creature. After that one night, no camera in that area ever picked it up again. Whatever it was, it never came back. Creepy encounter. A group of friends were just setting up their campsite in the woods when one of them noticed something standing between the trees watching them. They grabbed the camera and started filming from a distance, trying not to make any noise. You can see this dark creature, jet black face, glowing white eyes, just standing there completely still staring in their direction. They watched it for a few seconds and then made a quiet group decision to pack everything up and leave. Honestly, that is the most sensible thing anyone in that situation could do. Dogman encounter. One evening, a local in California spotted something strange moving toward the woods nearby. Walking upright on two legs, dark, heavy body, with a head shape that matched every dogman description ever reported in California. This local was shocked and did not move. The creature kept walking, pushed through the tree line, and vanished into the woods without ever looking back. This local was close enough that one turn of that head would have changed everything. Weird goblin. A man in Mexico started hearing strange noises coming from his storeroom late at night. He grabbed his phone and went to check what was going on. A tiny goblin-like creature, thin limbs, hunched over. The second that creature spotted him, it jumped straight down and vanished. No sound after that, no sign it had ever been there. A man standing in his own storeroom with no explanation for what just ran out of it is a feeling nobody wants to experience. Human tree. A YouTuber exploring the woods in Brazil at night caught something on camera that has been hard to explain ever since. Between the trees stood a figure with a completely human shape, a recognizable face, arms extended, but the entire body was formed from wood, roots, and twisted branches, like the tree itself had taken a human form. A man standing in dark woods at night seeing something like that had every reason to run. but he kept filming just long enough to capture it. Then in one instant, the figure disappeared completely. The tree behind where she stood was completely empty and undisturbed. Fairy escape. Fairies have been part of stories for centuries, but almost nobody has footage of one. This clip changed that for a lot of people. Right in the middle of a large spider web, a tiny winged creature was caught and struggling to get free. The body was human-shaped, small enough to fit in a palm, with soft pink wings, just like the fairy. It kept moving, kept pushing, until it finally broke loose from the silk and disappeared into the air. Trapped fairy. This video has been shared online from an unknown source and puzzled every viewer. You can see a tiny winged creature was trapped inside a glass jar and fighting hard to get out. The wings looked like a fairy, but the face told a completely different story. Sharp features and an aggression that made people uncomfortable just watching it. Comments on the footage were split right down the middle. Half the people believed this was genuine proof that fairies are real. The other half said that the face does not belong to any fairy, and that whatever was locked inside that jar was something far stranger than that. Russian mystery. Russian police were called to a street where a creature was causing panic and nobody could get near it. The creature had dark, textured skin covered in what looked like roots and mud and fangs that were hard to look at. Officers surrounded it, and a serious struggle followed before they managed to get it into a police van. Once that van drove away, the story disappeared completely. No report about what Russian authorities did with that creature. Tailed creature. A creature was spotted near a river sitting on the rocks at the water's edge. The body was human-shaped, but the skin had a dark gray-blue tone, and a long reptilian tail was visible, curled behind it. Long, dark hair hung down its back, and it sat completely still, facing the water the whole time. The person filming stayed behind the trees and never made a sound. The creature stayed there for some time, then went into the waters. What are your thoughts on it? Winged creature's mystery. Footage came out of Romania that left people genuinely unsettled, and nobody has explained it since. Across a dark forest, standing on top of the bare tree stumps, were multiple tall winged creatures just perched there in the dim light. Each one had a long, thin body, wide, dark wings folded at the sides, and a head that looked nothing like any bird or animal anyone could name. They were not flying, just standing on those stumps like they owned that forest. And now, let us move on to our subscriber pick of the day. One of our subscribers sent in this picture, and the story behind it is hard to ignore. A security camera in their backyard picked up something standing near the fence late at night. The shape was thin, tall, with a large head and limbs that looked like an alien. The family was shaken enough to call 911.
2 people or 2 subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large.
Cops actually showed up and investigated the backyard. They found nothing and gave no explanation.
What did you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
Whatever that camera caught standing in that backyard that night was gone by the time anyone got there, and it has never shown up on that camera again.